as we said, it's something completely new in advertising and a controversial ad at that. It's from a religious group, and they say that it's time to bring Jesus into modern life, to do something practical, as we say, and that what you drive is a religious and a moral choice. What would Jesus drive? That's the provocative question a group called the Evangelical Environmental Network is asking, and it claims to have the answer: something fuel efficient.
Yet too many of the cars, trucks, and SUVs that are made that we choose to drive are polluting our air, increasing global warming, changing the weather, and endangering our health, especially the health of our children.
In an ad campaign that will air in 4 states, the group says Christians have a moral imperative to preserve the environment by giving up their gas-guzzling SUVs, minivans, pickups. But does the group have a prayer, considering that those 3 made up half of all vehicles sold in the United States last year? And does the group have the right to connect religion to car sales?
What would Jesus drive?
The Reverend Pat Robertson of the Christian Broadcasting Network said, "I think the concept of linking Jesus to an anti-SUV campaign borders on blasphemy, and I regard it as a joke."
Jesus would not drive an SUV because he would not want our country to be filled with pollution.
Put religion behind it, I think it's a cheap shot.
And the auto industry isn't convinced that if Jesus were in a showroom, he'd drive off in a small car.
He may well choose an SUV so that several of his apostles could travel with him.
As consumers decide which car is right for them, religious considerations aside, they might remember that in the Bible, Jesus rode a donkey or walked. Still the most fuel-efficient way to get around in his time or in ours. Well, joining me now from Detroit is the man behind these controversial ads. He is the Reverend Jim Ball, Executive Director of the Evangelical Environmental Network. And Reverend Ball, we thank you this morning. Let's wade right in here. Pat Robertson says this is bordering on blasphemy and that Jesus cares about souls, not fuel economy.
Well, Diane, thanks for having me on your program. First, I want folks to understand that it's not just evangelical Christians who are asking about transportation as a moral issue. Yesterday, we met with Mr. Ford with religious leaders from across the spectrum, Jewish leaders, Catholic sisters, mainline Protestants, and evangelicals, asking Mr. Ford to increase fuel efficiency across his fleet.
And what did he say to you?
Well, you know, Mr. Ford's a very gracious man. We were very thankful for his time. He said basically he would take our views very seriously and he'd be getting back to us.
Well, I want to ask you, though, again, about the implications of this. First of all, does this mean driving an SUV is a sin, in your view?
Diane, what we're saying to folks is that transportation pollution is a serious moral issue. Impacts human health, especially kids, global warming, our dependence on foreign oil. These are serious moral issues. Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. That's a positive thing that we all can do. Reduce our transportation pollution, and we'll be loving our neighbor as ourselves.
So does this mean the next thing is that you would bring Jesus, say, into cigarette smoking in a more aggressive way? What other kinds of things? I mean, getting into household appliances, that's what people ask.
Well, Diane, for us as evangelical Christians, for me as an evangelical Christian, I confess Christ to be my Savior and my Lord. He is Lord over all my decisions, including my transportation choices. And so in every decision I make, I'm in my heart saying, Jesus, what would you have me do?
Well, what do you think Jesus would drive? What is the answer to your question then?
Well, what we say to folks is that when you purchase your next vehicle, you should buy the least polluting, most fuel-efficient vehicle that truly meets your needs.
But isn't that a bicycle?
Well, we actually are encouraging folks, hey, how can you reduce your transportation pollution? What ways can you find to do that? I myself take public transportation 60 miles one way in my commute.
But you have a car at home?
We own a Toyota Prius that gets over 50 miles to the gallon, and it's one of those cars called a SULEV car, a super ultra low emission vehicle car.
Well, you're not recommending donkeys then?
Well, you know, Diane, Jesus, for us, is alive in our hearts right now. He's not just some historical figure. He's our risen Lord. And so he's in our hearts with us now. He's helping us make our decisions.
Well, again, Reverend Ball, we're so grateful to you for joining us this morning, and you've sure got everybody talking with this campaign. We thank you.
Well, Diane, let me say love to my wife, Cara.
That is certainly permitted. You can always say love to wives on Good Morning America. Thank you again for being with us. We want to point out that the average fuel economy for a vehicle in America right now is 20.8 miles per gallon, and that's higher than it's been in a long time, so, or lower rather than it's been in a long time. So there is a point there about the amount of fuel we're all expending. Okay, let's go to Tony Perkins now with the weather. Tony.